Hey, Daniel from GaryMusicStudio.com. Today's question is from Renee, and I'm just going to jump right into it. What actually happens during your lessons that makes them successful? For example, is it the structure? Is it the curriculum? Is it the teacher preparation? Is it different kind of activities? And what actually makes my group lesson program successful? I've had a lot of time to think about this because I've been doing it for 11 years now, and in large part, I do feel that my successful group lessons training program, it's kind of a catalog of that. Like everything that's in there is what I feel is necessary. And so for me to answer this question right now, I'm really going to hit some of those major points. Obviously, I can't go into depth. That training program the core of it is 12 hours long, but I think I can hit on some highlights of things that I think are most crucial. And I'm going to start with an odd one, one that you might not expect. Because when you ask the question, how did you make your group lesson program successful, you might think exactly where Renee went, which was, okay, perhaps it is the curriculum, perhaps it is the structure. But actually, I think underlying all those important things, I think there is something for me that has made my program increasingly more successful the longer I went on. And that is belief. So number one is just belief. And I can't overstate this. I believe in my group lesson program completely, but I didn't always believe in my group lesson program. It was a catch-22 at the beginning. I started on faith. I didn't know if it was going to work or not, and I didn't always believe, and as a result, since I didn't have results, I wasn't sure I could do it, and as a result, parents didn't really believe either because I didn't have that confidence. And I've said this before. I think I said this on a Tim Topham podcast a couple years ago, or maybe when I did a special session with his inner circle members. But I said something and it kind of surprised me because I never really stated it this way before. But the statement was this: your parents will never believe more than you believe. And that goes for a group lesson program or any kind of program you run, whether it's just a traditional one-on-one lesson program, whether it's a preschool program, whether it's an after-school program, a summer camp. Your parents will never believe more than you do. And so for me, the problem at the beginning was that I didn't have results. I didn't have proof. I was kind of making it up as I went along. No one was doing a program the way that I was doing it. And so over time, as I worked on the quality of the program and I began to see results improve, I got more confident. And as a result, it showed up in how I communicated with parents. It showed up in my marketing. And as I got more confident, parents believed more, they bought in more, they trusted me more, and it was kind of this virtuous cycle of I believed more, and as a result, I got better results. And the fact that I got better results, I believed more. And then because I believed more, I got better results. And this is what happened over time. To the point that now I would actually scoff at the idea of seeing a beginner student one-to-one unless the parent made some sort of pledge or demonstrated that they were going to work with that child every day and have that child at the piano at least 30 plus minutes. And if a parent is willing to do that, then it doesn't really make sense to see a child one-to-one. That's how much I believe in the power of group lessons. And I'm going to explain more in a future point here in this video as to why I would scoff, because those are pretty strong words. But again, that just highlights the fact that I believe in this so much. And honestly, and I've mentioned this in another video, but group did help me become a better teacher. When you teach one-to-one, you have a very specific viewpoint. When you teach in an entirely different way, like if you went from teaching one-to-one in a traditional format to teaching one-to-one Suzuki, just the fact that you were teaching Suzuki would give you a broader perspective. And even though you might not stay as a Suzuki teacher, the experiences that you gain as a Suzuki teacher and the difference of opinion you would have as a result would show up in your teacher. And so it just makes you a stronger teacher overall. So the fact that I have taught in group and one-on-one both has really made me a stronger teacher overall than if I had just done one or the other. And so again, that kind of contributed to that belief. So I'm going to restate the question. What do you think has made your group lessons most successful or successful at all? And the first one was belief. The second one, necessity. Okay? And again, this might not feel like I'm answering the question in the way that it was originally posed or how you might think, but I'm getting to that point. But I do think these first two play a lot in why it has been successful and increasingly successful over the years. So here's the simple truth. I have to teach this way. Now, when I started teaching, I didn't have a family. I didn't have a wife. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. It was just me. And after I graduated from college, I moved back in with my parents briefly. So my expenses were very, very low. So I had the luxury of not needing a lot of money. Didn't mean that I didn't want to increase it, but there was no pressure there. Now, as the only person working in my household, I had to find a way to increase income. And so, you might ask, okay, Daniel, what does that have to do with me? My situation isn't the same as yours. And so I'll put it in this way. In 1519, okay, stick with me here, Hernando Cortez, he was a Spanish explorer. Him and his crewmates, he was the captain, the explorer, him and his crewmates were sent on a mission from the king or queen of Spain, I don't know who was in charge at the time, to explore what is now modern-day Mexico. When they got there, he had this sense that the crew members were really pushing to go back. So you know what he did? He burned his ships. He burned the ships that they crossed the Atlantic on, a dangerous voyage in of itself, but he burned it so that everyone knew that they had no choice but to press forward. So, here's what I find oftentimes with folks who are on the fence about group lessons. They don't have this sense of need or necessity. For me, it was very much the case. As a newly married guy in 2008, we were doing fine. But when I thought about us having a family in the future, I realized that I had a limited number of hours after school that I could see kids, and that number didn't match a number that I thought would be able to sustain a family long term. And maybe I could have done things differently. At the time, I wasn't confident in raising my rates too much. This was a long time ago. And in my mind, the only way out of this was to do group lessons. So in my mind, I saw it as a necessity. I have to do this. Now, I was going to do this until I was, the very best. That was the attitude that I took. I have to make this work. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to do, that's what is going to happen, because I don't see an alternative to this. And here's the takeaway for you. If you enter into this, if you enter into group lessons, or you enter into any kind of new program, and you're taking a wait and see attitude, you don't have that burn the ships mentality, it's very likely that it won't succeed, or that you won't even get it off the ground because you're not fully committed. I'm not a huge fan of heights, but there was a time that I jumped off a diving board. I couldn't halfway jump off that diving board. I had to be all in. I had to jump off, even though it was very high in the air. And once I had made that leap, there was no going back. Gravity would not allow me. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I mean when I say there's a necessity, and that's what you have to do if you're going to get any kind of program off the ground. You have to have that all-in mentality, that there's no going back. We're burning the ships. We're jumping off the diving board. We're doing what it takes. And so I think those two things, those two attitudes have undergirded what I've done. And it's what's going to make some of these more technical things I'm about ready to mention in point 3 and 4. I think that is the proper context from which to understand why I did the next two things that I did. Because the next two things I did, I think, are the things that are actually present in the group lessons themselves that make them so successful. So that leads me to point number 3, which is my group lessons, and the reason why I think they're successful, my group lessons are focused on repertoire acquisition. And I mentioned this in other videos, so I won't belabor the point here, but I think to be successful at something, you need to have a singular focus. I'm not trying to do multiple things with my group program. I don't have competing goals. And those goals could be myriad. There could be all kinds of things that teachers are testing or trying. But for me, I have one goal in my group lesson program. Help kids master as much repertoire in the lesson as they possibly can every single week, and help them leave the lessons knowing that music. So when they go home, they're not learning, they're rehearsing. So every decision I make in the context of the group has to answer yes to the question of, does this help them learn more music? Does this help them feel like when they're leaving, they know the music? And that might sound like two goals, but in my mind, they're really closely connected. To me, it's not just enough for them to learn the song. They need to be really good at it. It's not just enough, for me to check off a box that says, oh, this kid left with 6 songs. That's not going to cut it for me. And that's why some of my students who are a little more casual don't always leave with 6 songs. They might leave with fewer than that. And it's why some of my students might leave with more, is that I'm constantly testing what I'm doing, what I'm talking about, how I'm presenting the material, what iPad apps I choose to use, how I choose to structure lessons. Everything runs through that question. Is this going to help them learn more music? And I think that's why it's been successful, because I've had that singular focus, and the focus has been in line with what parents want. That's where we're going to lead to the fourth and final thing that I think have made my program so successful, is the marketing of it. I've been clear on this in the past, on my blog, in past videos. I see marketing as communicating value, but there's a flip side to that. How do I know what to communicate about? I have to be in touch with what parents want. And so for me, marketing is about lining up with parent expectations. And so how will parents measure the success of their child? Well, they're probably going to do it on outward, visible, tangible markers, tangible goals, tangible things that they can see that their child has accomplished or can do. And so for me, for a child to go home with music and they already know the music, that's a very powerful thing to be able to promise to a parent. And then to fulfill on that promise, it's powerful for the parent to see that promise fulfilled week after week after week. So in the marketing of my program, I make sure that I'm in line with parental goals, and that I'm constantly stating and telling and re-explaining that that's the goal, and that kids are actually fulfilling the goal. And so to get down to it, and this might seem kind of obvious, but my group lessons are so successful is because they're well attended. They're well attended because we're getting good results. I get good testimonials. I have great performances. I have great examples and case studies of kids doing phenomenal work. And that just kind of feeds on itself. So when a new family comes in or discovers my website or sees my ads and they start investigating me, they're already primed when they meet me, or they have a telephone conversation with me, or we trade emails. They're already primed. They already see that this works. They're in a position of belief already, because what they've seen on the front end is so powerful. Now, I don't necessarily advertise on the front end that I'm teaching group lessons. I don't necessarily think that it even needs to enter into the conversation on the front end about what format I'm choosing. And that's really where I'll probably wrap up today, and that is this, that I believe in reframing the conversation. I have 4 marketing messages that I teach in the Successful Group Lessons program, and these 4 marketing messages are a reframe for any kind of difficulty or trouble that parents have in believing that the group lesson program will go well for them, or even in believing that it could be a quality program. It's a cognitive reframe. I mean, I don't know if I can break it down any more than that, other than to give a demonstration. It's like Thomas Edison. Someone asked him, how did you feel about failing 10,000 times? And he said, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. For him, it was the same thing, but he chose to look at it in a different way, and that's what those marketing messages are about. And again, if I had a long time, perhaps we could go into that in this point. That's not the point of this video. I want to stay really close to the goal there of explaining why I think it is. But I think belief, necessity, the fact that I have a singular focus and it's on repertoire acquisition for kids, and really, really good marketing. Parents enter into the program already true believers, and it's my fight to lose. I can only disappoint them at that point because they're kind of expecting at the beginning, because of the reframe that I've done and the way that I've explained the program, demonstrated that the program has worked for hundreds of other kids. They enter into it with really positive feelings, and I back those positive feelings up with results for each child. And the way that I get those results is because I believe that they can happen. I know that I have to make it work, and I have that singular focus of repertoire acquisition. And by framing the success of the lessons on how much the child will be able to learn in the lessons, and then being able to come back to the parent later and saying, hey, mission accomplished. It's this virtuous cycle of parents staying a long time, so my retention's high, them having positive things to say, good testimonials, great performances by students, and it just kind of keeps feeding on itself. And that's how it has done. That's how it's been for me for many years now, as I've been doing this for over a decade. So those are the 4 reasons I think my group lesson program is so successful, based on this question that was asked. Thanks so much for watching. If you have a comment, pushback, a question, leave it in the comments below. Hit the like button if this was helpful to you, and I'll see you in the next video.